Now to Melbourne, where Energy Minister Josh Frydenberg is beginning a media conference after COAG talks with state and territory energy ministers.
National Energy Guarantee, with a decision and determination to be taken at the August meeting. While there is still a lot of work to be done, there was a lot of goodwill in the room, and there was a widespread commitment to getting an outcome in August. For too long, energy and climate policy has been a political football, and as the battle lines have been drawn, consumers have been the casualty. So today, states, territories and the Commonwealth came together for a constructive discussion about the National Energy Guarantee and the way forward. Are there any questions?
What actually changed today? Because we talked to the state ministers and they're saying, as they came out, exactly what they said when they went in, which is they still have major concerns about the actual detail, particularly not from the ASB, but actually from you guys, from the federal government.
Well, the federal government's position is very clear. We are the party to the Paris Agreement, and the Commonwealth will set the emissions reduction targets for Australia and the way in which we will meet them. We have a very good track record. We beat our first Kyoto target, we're on track to beat our 2020 target, and emissions are now at their lowest level in 28 years on a per capita and GDP basis. I think there is now a recognition among the states and the territories that we need to put the hyper-partisanship aside and we need to move forward on the National Energy Guarantee, bearing in mind that this will be a world first to properly integrate energy and climate policy. It's been recommended by the Independent Energy Security Board itself, a recommendation out of the Finkel Review. It's been backed up by independent modelling that shows Australian households and businesses will have lower power bills. And it's been supported by a very loud chorus of business, industry and community groups who have got behind the National Energy Guarantee.
Minister, is there any indication, obviously the states say the target is too low, the emissions target is too low, but is it the federal government's sort of line in the sand, the 26%, that's not going to change? Is there any area though that the Commonwealth can give ground, if you like, to accommodate states that will have a higher target in a way that doesn't allow other states to backslide or to be laggards?
Well, we've been very clear that while we would not like to see a proliferation of state schemes and have a one single national approach, we don't have the power to prevent the states from going down that path. So the emissions reduction that flows from those state-based renewable energy targets will form part of that overall effort to meet that 26% emissions reduction. We think that 26% is right. It's a pro rata contribution of the electricity sector as part of our overall Paris Agreement, and we are doing work in the other sectors to reduce emissions, including in the land sector, the transport sector, the built environment and with energy efficiency.
So just on those streams of work, Minister, I think on the best estimates, the emissions reduction fund is already in the Environment Department's projections. Fuel standards, refrigerant changes to refrigerant rules and the NEG would add best case 35 million tonnes to emissions reduction. There's a gap of 128 million tonnes on projections, current projections by 2030, leaves you with 90 million to make up from additional reduction in the electricity sector and transport, agriculture sectors and the industrial sector in particular. Your colleague Michael McCormack has been out overnight saying the transport sector is not going to take a hit that damages people's ability to drive and so on. So where is the plan for either for the electricity sector to do more or for other sectors to do more to bridge that remaining gap of roughly 90 million tonnes?
Well, when it comes to the land sector, we've been very effective with the Emissions Reduction Fund that has contracted about 190 million tonnes of abatement at an average cost of around $12 a tonne. So very cost-effective emissions abatement. When it comes to the National Energy Productivity Plan, the goal is a 40% boost to energy productivity by 2030. We have a whole series of new appliance standards that we are releasing. We've done some work around the built environment, introduced new thresholds for disclosure levels around energy efficiency. The work of the Vehicle Emissions Forum is looking at how to reduce emissions in the transport sector. The safeguards mechanism has kicked in for industry and for some of those large emitters. So work is taking place across the board. But the good news, Ben, is that when it comes to the abatement task out to 2030, it has shrunk by 60% over the last 2 years. Now, when Labor was last in office, they projected that they were going to miss the 2020 target by more than 700 million tonnes, bearing in mind that 1 million tonnes is the equivalent of taking 300,000 cars off the road for a full year. We're now going to overshoot our 2020 target by more than 290 million tonnes. That just shows you how, with time, with technology, with developments, you can significantly improve your carbon footprint, and I'm confident that is why we will meet and beat our 2030 target.
The Greens have been pretty tough on you following this meeting. They're saying that the NEG as it currently stands is a policy to get through the Liberal Party room.
Well, the Greens have been a sideshow to this debate. Let's not forget that they're proposing to nationalise the energy system. Now, we need some $200 billion worth of infrastructure investment in the energy system out to 2050. I don't know which government's going to pay for that. And if it was ever going to try, you would see much higher taxes as a result. That's the Greens' policy because they don't believe in the market. We believe in a market-based mechanism, which is the National Energy Guarantee. We're determined to see it through. We're very pleased with today's outcome. And of course, we'll continue to work closely with the states, the territories and the Energy Security Board to reach a determination in August.
Are you confident your party room would also agree about the NEG as it currently stands for today?
Well, the National Energy Guarantee received strong support in the party room when it was debated last year. It was an extensive discussion. I went through in detail how it would work. It has now received an incredible range of stakeholder supports, and the Minerals Council, the Business Council, the Australian Industry Group, the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Dow Chemical, Rio Tinto, BHP, the Farmers Federation, Chemicals Australia, Manufacturing Australia, BlueScope have said it's the best policy that they've seen in more than a decade. These are the big employers across our country who are excited that for the first time we're going to properly integrate energy and climate policy and get the market working again. That's the message out of the National Energy Guarantee, that the market has not been working for consumers, and what we have seen is higher prices and less stability. What we will see with the National Energy Guarantee is lower prices and increased stability, as well as meeting our international targets. So it really is in the national interest to move forward with the National Energy Guarantee. That's why the Turnbull government is working so hard to see it delivered.
There's a lot of resistance from Victoria and Queensland at the moment. They've been very frank about it. What are you going to do to win them over to support the neg? 3 months is a very long time before August.
Well, I've actually been encouraged by the discussions we've had with Victoria at this meeting and in the lead-up. I think they recognise that particularly in Victoria, where they have a state-based renewable energy target, and following the closure of Hazelwood, the wholesale price of electricity increased by more than 80%, that they really need to get greater stability into the system. You see, Victoria has started to import power when it was always an exporter of power. And they have seen that the Australian Energy Market Operator in the last year issued 22 reserve notices or lack of reserve notices, which indicated that there could be shortfalls of supply. And so we are in a serious situation here when it comes to the reliability of our system. For the first time, the National Energy Guarantee will put a premium on reliability. That's good news for the Victorian system as it transitions to a lower emissions future. And I think the Victorians understand, particularly with such a large manufacturing base and so many manufacturers getting behind the National Energy Guarantee that it is the best way forward for Victoria and for the country.
But Victoria and Queensland have both mentioned that this concept of additionality, that having a state-based rep meant that they could be going above and over their obligations for the NEG, and perhaps there should be some sort of mechanism that adds whatever extra contribution they make above and beyond that 26% emissions target. Would you consider that?
Well, we're not considering additionality. We're considering a 26% target where the state schemes contribute to that overall target. Now, the states can go and knock their socks off with their own renewable energy schemes as long as they meet the reliability components set out by the National Energy Guarantee. But it is worth pointing out that in these states that have been calling for, and territories been calling for additionality, they've been very pleased to count towards their own renewable energy target the investment that has come through the federal renewable energy target. No additionality there. They've been happy to count what has come into their target through the federal scheme. So my clear message is that the National Energy Guarantee offers a break with the past. It does offer a way to lower emissions. It's been supported by the Clean Energy Council and other renewable energy companies, because what they are crying out for most is investment certainty so that they can take the big bets on the type of generation and the amount of generation investments that they want to make over the next 20 to 30 years with some certainty as to the legislative framework in which they'll operate.
The states have kept you on a very tight leash with a report back phone hook up in June, I think it is, and so I'd be interested in your comments on, is that a welcome
Absolutely.
For you guys? And can you also comment on, do you have any thoughts forming on the access to international carbon credits for the reliability obligation?
So on that, we made very clear that we supported the phone hookup. More consultation is helpful through this process as we move towards an August determination. That phone hookup will be in June. There will be further work undertaken by the ESB in the lead up to that phone hookup, and we'll continue to closely engage. On the issue of carbon offsets, there are two types. There are international permits and there are ACCUs. As you know, ACCUs are produced by the Emissions Reduction Fund at a domestic level. We have made clear that the federal government hasn't made a final decision on the access to permits. We did have it in our climate change paper. We said we would give in principle support, but there would be a lot of details that needed to be worked out through the Paris Agreement and the lead up to 2020 and beyond. So we remain open on that issue. We will listen and consult with stakeholders on the issue of permits, but no decision has been taken.
Hints about thinking on it? I mean, you're more inclined to allow ACCUs than international permits, given the...
I'm not going to go into any further detail on it, Ben, other than to say we retain an open mind on the issue of permits. And what I told the meeting is that when it comes to the environment, they're looking for emissions reduction wherever it may come from. A tonne of emission abatement in India is worth the same to the environment as a tonne of emission abatement in Australia. What we need to do is ensure that there is a credible international system, that it's a rules-based system, and I do note that other countries, particularly countries in our region, like Japan and Korea and others, have talked very positively about international permits and access to it as a way of helping them meet their international targets. Peter?
Is it your concern, I suppose, that if you do allow the international permits, a carbon price will emerge from this system, which is what the government has strangely denied would be part of this? And secondly, given that the 26% looks like rock solid, not going to change, does this imply that when the Paris recommitment starts in a year, or later this year into next year, that Australia will not be raising its commitments?
What we have said in terms of our commitments is under the Paris Treaty in 2025 that we would look at our emissions reduction commitments for the period from 2030 to 2035. It's clear in our paper that has now made public, which we circulated to ministers. On the issue, it's not about having a carbon price. Permits have been accepted as a means of reducing carbon abatement and that they can be used quite effectively to help reduce some of the pressure on energy-intensive businesses. That's why when we announced the offset proposal last year, a number of industries came out and strongly supported it. We retain an open mind on that issue, but the clear focus for us is how do we meet our international commitments, but in a way that doesn't compromise energy affordability, international competitiveness or the reliability of our system.
Last question.
Of all the
lady.
concerns raised today by the ministers and the territories, which will be the hardest to overcome by the time the fall rolls out?
I'm confident that all the issues that were discussed today and last night with the ministers, we can work through and that we can land a position in August which is in the national interest. From the Turnbull government's perspective, from the Commonwealth's perspective, that is the National Energy Guarantee. This is Australia's best chance to integrate energy and climate policy and deliver cheaper, cleaner, more reliable power to all Australians. If we don't seize this opportunity, what we will see is higher prices, lower reliability and more expensive government interventions. And that is not a positive way forward for our country.
You've had huge success today, though, winning the support of state and state heads for the NEG. How do you win the support of the Monash Forum?
Well, the Monash Forum are valued colleagues who have signed up, and I respect their views and I'll continue to engage regularly with them. When it comes to our energy system, we need to be technology neutral. So their support for coal is important in the context of coal remaining a key part of our energy mix today and into the future. But what we need to do is get the market signals right so that those investments can take place. Now, I've said at the Press Club that what is much more likely than a new coal-fired power station being built is an upgrade to existing coal-fired power stations. We have 20 coal-fired power stations in Australia with an average life of 27 years. So while they may not live forever, there's a lot of life left in them. And by having a technology-neutral policy that gives an emphasis on reliability and dispatchable power, which coal generation is, as well as the ability for all sources of power, whether they thermal generators like coal or gas or renewables, to reduce emissions, coal has a good chance to continue to play a vital role in the system, and I don't think we should be demonising coal. I think we should be saying that coal is a critical part of our energy system, but when it comes to our future energy mix, it will have an all-of-the-above approach: coal, gas and an increasing role for renewables. Thank you very much.